Hello and welcome to another MarketMuse Content Strategy webinar. I'm your host, the co-founder and chief product officer for MarketMuse, Jeff Boyle. Today's discussion is titled How to Make Your Digital Authority Authentic. And it's going to be a discussion focused on intent-focused site structuring, content quality, subject matter expertise, managing writers, content clustering strategies. It's really loaded. It's going to be amazing. We're also going to talk about some things that are a little bit controversial. The role of backlinks with a digital authority and authentic authority content strategy, niche hunting, and things like link velocity and link dimensions. Before I intro our special guest today, a few housekeeping notes. Ask us anything in the GoToWebinar, and we'll either get to them in line if they're relevant and in line with our discussion, or we'll hit them at the end in a Q&A. Anything we don't get to or it overflows, we'll personally answer them in the Content Strategy Collective community. We're gonna be doing an Ask Me Anything follow-up right after this. So we'll have a link at the end of these show notes, or you can look for it online. The recording and notes are available after the webinar, and they'll be sent out via email. So look for those. There's also a page on the MarketMuse site. And while you're there, go download the rest of our recordings. We've got some amazing collection from technical SEO leaders, thought leaders like Hamlet Batista, sales enablement experts like Pam Didner, SEO superstars like Andy Crestadina, and all around super pros like Kevin Indig from G2. If you download multiple recordings this week, shoot me an email. I'll personally set up a free content strategy session with you and one of our content advisory team leads. Okay, that's a mouthful. And now I'll introduce today's special guest. She is the COO of Center Keel Media and Venture Forth Media. And a quick little brag, I was fortunate enough to sit on a roundtable that she managed last year at Rhodium Weekend in Vegas at an event that we both attended. And she gave one of the most intelligent, expert lens, clearly from someone who's been there and done that on content clustering that I'd ever heard outside the walls of MarketMuse. Amy Aitman.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Amongst all these, the marketing webinars are amazing, and I'm just like super thrilled to be here. And thanks so much. That was a great intro, Jeff. Well, we appreciate it.
We are pumped to have you as well. Can you give us a quick background on your story, Center Keel, Venture Forth, your team's mission? Anything else that you'd like to add?
Sure. Well, I met Ewan online, completely digital. I was working as a freelance writer / wannabe content marketer, really at the time. And I reached out to him and I did a small job for him. And then I asked him what else I could do. And he had just been building up the Venture Forth Media portfolio. He bootstrapped the company himself. He started his first website in college for beer money, and it was an instant connection. And he literally, we started with a team of like me, him, and a few contractors, and now I think we're looking at about 100 people, contractors, writers, editors, portfolios now on both ends. So it's pretty exciting. It's been a wild few years with you and thinking about all the things that I've learned there. And so yeah, I met literally online. I've never actually met Ewan in person, but we have really great,
Amy, I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with your phone line. Can you phone in to the screen and we'll just pause for a second?
I'm going to phone in. I'll do that right now. Okay.
Try phoning in, and I'll give a little bit of background. Amy was talking about Ewan Finzer, who is the founder of Venture Forth Media, and they run a portfolio of websites, and those websites range everywhere, everything from affiliate-based sites, huge content community sites, as well as sites that they purchased that have existing presence online, and they've taken them and grown them consistently and turned that into a really strong portfolio business. And And some of the things that, Amy is really an expert on involve how to assess an existing site, how to understand where the potential lies on a site maybe prior to purchase. Amy, are you back?
I'm back. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Hey, no problem. I just gave a little bit of background on the Venture Forth portfolio, how, where your tactics lie. And then I think a really good step now is just going to be to dive into today's discussion, as long as you can hear me and I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Wonderful, no problem. Hey, it happens. We are all in our homes or stuck dealing with home internet and bad.
We have a lot more competition online these days for these channels.
Good, yeah, exactly. So the overview of today's discussion, we're going to walk through Amy's 5 keys to building digital authority, walk through the importance of site structure, backlinking strategy, as well as get into content clustering. And before we get started, or actually to kick off, I'd love, Amy, if you could get started with us to talk about how you assess sites for their potential. What are you looking for when you're starting a site from scratch as far as designing for the user intent and user targets? And what research do you focus on before structuring or to modify the structure of a site?
Well, I think that one of the things that you and especially is really good at is finding those niches that are maybe up and coming trends, doing a lot of important keyword research beforehand, monetization strategies beforehand, before any kind of thought goes into the structure of the site or what we want to be known for. And I think that's where we really start, and especially with the incubator sites, is that kind of, thinking about, is this going to be a niche that we can, actually get some traction in, and can it be a monetized niche, and all of those things first before anything else goes on. As far as like acquiring sites, we haven't done a ton of that for that. Most of everything that I work on, it's been a creation from the mind of you and on paper, and structure it out and see if it sticks, kind of thing. And there's a lot of niches. I mean, I get surprised all the time, some of the niches that we jump into. So it's really fun.
So tell me a little bit more about you said some things that people may not be familiar with in your portfolio strategy. Tell me a little bit more about that niche identification. I know that you're saying, I think it's a great takeaway for anyone in the audience is to ensure that you have this strategy documented, ensure that, before you even start writing, you know where you want to go. And so
definitely.
So what goes into that research and that answer-based research and that information-based research?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we have a portfolio, so it's maybe a different approach to someone just doing, starting a blog or publishing a blog. So if it's just someone that wants to get into their own blog, I would say, what are you passionate about? Is that a niche that you can make money on? Is that something that the competition scores are really high? Those kind of things. I feel like Ewan actually has quite a pulse on trends that are happening. And of course, because we have a portfolio of 40 sites, we have data that nobody else would have on trends. So like sub-trends from other sites and other niches that would work better. Mm-hmm. So all of that stuff is important when it comes to like the very early days of a site. Like, are we going to actually do that? And yeah, that's how we come up with decisions.
That's a great insight. And from a competitive standpoint, I'll have a few questions for you a little bit later about ways that you think about competitive analysis. But certainly before starting a site, being able to look at cohort, we call it in the biz, call it competitive cohort profiling, but it's looking at the competitive cohort, what has been their link velocity, what has been their publishing velocity, how frequently are they updating content? And am I going to be able to resource against that? I mean, that's a really
we do all that as well. We do all of that. And we look at, because it might seem competitive, the niche, and so you actually do that digging around. And the great thing one of the great things about MarketMuse is you can see the holes in other people's content as well. You can kind of say, oh, I think if we went after this type of keyword or these topics on this site, we could get in there. It's like, we could weasel our way into that niche that on the surface might look really, really super competitive if you're like just Googling things and looking at results. So yeah, there's lots of ways to approach that for sure.
Well, I mean, I think one other nuance, and if you're not in this kind of mode, is to think that, there are people like Venture Forth out there. So if you're sitting out there and you're resting on your laurels and you're sitting out there with content and think places that haven't been updated, that we call ROSS, or risk of standing still, it's really high if you're making money, because someone, you can dive in and find those areas. They may look like they're strong, but they're not. So when you're that's a great insight. When you're building out that site structure, and you're thinking about how you want to build it, are you thinking about the buyer journey? Are you thinking about the purchase journey? Are you thinking about just, doing traditional keyword research? What goes into that process, and what insights can you give to the audience?
I think the two main things is the monetization process, because as you know, Amazon has just like decreased their payouts once again, like 80%. I have a lot of friends in the business that lost a ton of money. And also I say the buyer journey, that's where the monetization part really comes in. And then keyword research, like finding those clusters of topics and specific keywords that we can actually have a stab at, doing. So that keyword research part and that monetization research part, those are the two main keys.
And what is the data point? What's one data point or a couple data points you're looking for on the monetization side that people might not know how to assess, or they might not naturally have that as part of their process? What's kind of the, what you can share, of course, but what's something that you're looking for? Maybe in contrast that against something you're not looking for.
Well, there's ad networks that we prefer and we love, and most of our sites are monetized affiliates. So like looking for literally seeing, are we going to be able to have the right affiliates with the right payouts? Are they good payouts? Are they, ongoing payouts? Everyone loves that, the money that comes in every month, regardless. So like those kind of things. So yeah, there's a few different decisions that have to get made with monetization. I mean, for example, you might have a really big passion and want to start this niche, and you do some digging around, you find there's literally no affiliate programs. So you have to depend completely on ad network, which may or may not work. And then again, you go to the keyword research. Is there going to be enough volume for you to have the traffic that you need to have the ad network make the revenue that you need? And so it goes hand in hand, and it's different for every site.
No, that's great sentiment. So it's really about understanding the entire journey, going from awareness to consideration to purchase, even post-purchase. I know that some of the sites you manage look at people who own things already, and they might be making an additional purchase. So it's more adherence, troubleshooting, and those types of insights and topics. So it's really understanding the entire buyer journey when you're structuring the site around the types of things those people care about, whether it is reviews, whether it is early stage awareness, whether it is post-purchase adherence and repurchase. I think that's something that's worth the price of admission today. Take that away when you're structuring a new site around monetization strategy or affiliate or to generate. Are you in control of that entire buying process? And because if not, and kind of the next thing that we wanted to catch up on was, if not, you're not going to look like you really know what you're talking about. So the one thing I like to say is that you can't if you really knew about this, if you found writers and they really knew about the topic, they would have written X. And what is X for this? And so tell us a little bit more about your approach to finding subject matter experts and why you think this has been kind of the key to your wins.
Oh yeah, I love our writers. I get to work with them quite closely, and they are amazing. They live all around the world. They are really passionate, and they are great writers, but they do know the subject matters so intensely. So like, say if we have a travel site, we make sure the people that are writing for that site are actually traveling and have actually done that, have real insights to give, because I know that you know this, but a piece of content has to, answer all those questions that your user is having and really give those answers that they're looking for. And somebody without the subject matter expertise just can't do that. And for a long time, I've been in the content marketing space for a long time, and it would be like you just hire good writers. Grammar is so important, and good structure of writing, and they can do their research. And what I found is we have some writers that they're not the best polished writers, but their ideas you can't get anywhere else. You can't get them to know the subject matter so intensely and ask and answer all the questions, and more than I could even plan out. And for a long time, we debated whether to give our writers more of a formulaic approach or let them, create that. So it's actually been a back and forth. And we use MarketMuse a lot. And this is why I know our subject matter writers are so good, because I do random MarketMuse checks on our writers all the time to see are you covering this topic? Is this really are you really going to answer all these questions and cover this topic? And I would say 9 out of 10 times they get our really top, close to top score.
That's uncanny, isn't it? I mean, and it's one of those things. We have situations where we evaluate, large pools of writers as well, and it's strong, and it also illustrates passion, I feel too. When you can really sense the passion. I mean, so if you assign somebody who's really into, and I use this example all the time, but if you assign somebody who's really into Windows and you assign them something about Linux, or you assign them something about, a recent Macintosh related concept, and you look at the drafts and you evaluate them against a topic model or an intent model like what we have, it'll show you that they phoned it in for those other two. Not like they deep dive.
Yeah.
Do you see that a lot when you're evaluating?
I totally agree. And one of the things that we implemented in the last few years is a self-select system where they can choose the topics that they want to write about. And if they're getting into the research and they don't have any insights or they don't have enough, they can put the topic back and take another one. I find that's been a really key to improving our overall content as well. Because, people do like to write about things that they actually use. And we also do a lot of things like send people products to test, testing out tools, actually getting into the tool and testing out the tool. And for any kind of thing like that, it's the people that are writing, they're actually tool users. They're actually product users. They're actually subscribers as well as writers. But if I had to choose between an actual subscriber and subject matter expert or someone that just calls himself a writer, I would choose subject matter expert any day of the week, because I can improve their writing. I can give them tips. The editors can polish things. We can fix all that stuff, but we can't fix, did you answer all the questions? Did you have an expert? Do you actually know what you're talking about?
No, I think that's a great point. And I think one nuance also is that people who actually care aren't typically going to answer all those questions as Q&A. They're going to have naturally woven them into the narrative.
Yeah.
And that you can't train that. It's very hard. And so I love what you said about you can polish dull content. I'll use myself as an example. Not going to sit down in front of a computer to write that much. I might throw, the drafts that I hand my team that I write look like chaos, frankly. They polish them up into beauty, or they have to do them by recording conversations or interviews because I just, can't get it out of my brain and on paper. That's how a lot of subject matter experts operate too. So being able to take, notes and polishing, something into that has the basis and expertise and turning it into something beautiful. The way that plays out on sites like yours and sites that need that expertise to win, I think it's the win. I mean, it is the win. And legitimacy. I mean, if you really know a space, you can read when someone doesn't know what they're talking about, and that's what.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And you know,
And the more niche that you go with anything, the more diehard fans that you have.
right.
So that's in my experience. The more niche, it's like people really are passionate about subject matter.
Yeah. I'm interested in how that plays into your competitive analysis. You know, it plays into mine, certainly with clients as well as with for us. Is if I see a non-expert with content performing out there, or I see that, you know, a weaker tactic has been employed, like maybe a keyword deficit. Do you take those things into account when you're assessing a particular topic, to say, oh wow,
Definitely.
There's
One
a
of the
weak
things
sauce
that
out there.
you've got a good point, because one of the things with competitive analysis that people forget, they are always looking at the big competitors, but we also look at the small competitors, the ones that are like, because a lot of them, they don't have like the site structure things, the technical SEO behind them. They might not even be on a WordPress site, but they're still picking up keywords and they still have a fan base. Those are great competitors to look at as well, because we know if we do everything right and on our end, we're going to be able to, you know, grab that little niche that they have. And so, yeah, we look. You don't just want to look at the, you know, the big famous competitors. Those niche ones are really important too.
Oh yeah,
you know.
That's clear. And I always like to, if you're focused on something and they're just generating wins naturally through kind of love, you know, their love. Well, if you get surgical and you've got the subject matter expertise behind you, you can be a deadly weapon. I mean, and that's what I feel like that is what you do. I mean, you have that subject matter expertise and the tactical, that surgical focus, so that if someone's just naturally accumulating value, you can unpack how they accumulated that value and turn it into a machine. And that's how does that keyword research, what's the difference between traditional keyword research that you may detect? Like I was talking about with some of those weaker sites, they just are focused on, a particular keyword list and they've got a page against each keyword in that list. How does that differ from what you do, and how do you exploit that when you see that someone's still using Google AdWords Keyword Planner?
I think the key to the keyword research is really understanding the, I'd say, where the buyer is. So and giving them that in the beginning. So, I mean, a simple little test if people want to go out there is like look up a keyword, then add a modifier like best or how to, and see the different types of results that you get. So a lot of times Google's going to give you like an e-com or a site for something just like shoes, but a shoe review is going to be a content site. So that's a good place to start there. So we like to think of where the buyer is on the funnel too. It's like we want to get them, where they're making decisions, where they're, they're doing their review, like they're looking at the products that they want to buy. They're doing comparisons. They're looking for alternatives, and that's really our key to keyword research. And then just the way that we release them to get those, clusters of expertise at a time. That's another part of what we do as well.
Ooh, see, that's some secret sauce there. That's some secret sauce, Amy. I'll just put a big asterisk in here so we can put this in the show notes. But I mean, the tactic you're talking about is variant to intent targeting. So you basically have a high level of fractured intent topic, and you're analyzing the variants and almost turning those variants, those keyword variants, or those synonyms or close relatives into a story of the buy cycle. Is that how kind of the high level view of what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to like the basic principles of understanding, what people are looking for and when they're looking for it and when they're ready to buy. I mean, that's basically it in a nutshell,
Yeah, I think people forget about the buyer in that construct. So they are, sometimes they're looking to rank for head terms as kind of like their goal. And like, that's not a goal. Your goal is to be there at every moment of the cycle. If you gain ground against that head term, the high likelihood is that you've actually built an infrastructure. across the entire buy cycle. You can't just go out and write, early stage awareness content only and expect to rank across the buy cycle or expect to rank on head terms. It just doesn't work unless there's like a really, really explicit intent behind that topic. It just doesn't work. And that's what I think you've explained in, this one tactic from a variant targeting. But it's really to say, if somebody is in with this, does your keyword research build something that at the end of the day illustrates that you're an expert, right? I mean, that's really what you're for. Or the buying process, you're giving good advice. Tell me a little bit more about reviews, keyword research, and alternative research that you've done.
I feel like that's just a part of what we're doing because that's where we want the buyer to be. So that's what the kind of content that we like to create, and it really helps in the niche space. That's the kind of site that we have. But again, I go back to, like, if you have a different kind of site, those people, like, there's so many people that are just killing it, and they don't have tons of technical SEO. They just literally have passion, and they literally love what they are doing. So that's another way to go as well. And I guess it depends on how you want to monetize your site as well. So if you were just want to go after an ad network and you're a crafter and you love crafting and that's what you want to do, then that's a different approach. Our approach, like I said in the beginning, we think about the monetization from the get-go. So that's how that informs our keyword research as well, and the modifiers we use and the topics we choose.
Wow, that's great insight. So, I mean, the net, I think the short answer on that is, can you find passion winning? Can you find community winning in these spaces? And if you can outdo them with great content and great structure, because they are driven by passion, they are driven by community, and you can tactically or become surgical. I love that. That is.
I think so too, especially since like the last few years with all the Google updates. I feel like the passion, subject matter expertise sites are getting pushed up.
Yep.
And I mean, that's how I've seen it, so it's not just a feeling.
No, it's absolutely right. I mean, tell me how you think about the content updates and how they, quality, whether you reference it as EAT or the QRG, or if you don't know what any of those acronyms are, what are your what's your way of, not you, I mean like anyone listening, but how do you think about quality? What points of reference have you adopted as gospel internally, and how does it kind of provide you a shield against ebbing and flowing with updates?
That's a really good question, because the updates have been going on for a while, and we did have some sites in our portfolio that needed some, EAT love. And it's, a matter of like, okay, we have these subject matters, but there were some sites we didn't even have author bylines or descriptions or about us pages, like, basic stuff. So a lot of those like practical things we added to the AT. But to think about Google updates overall, and I know you probably know the tool, the Penguin tool, where you can see your site against all the updates, and you can see how it goes. And those are fun to get big stand back visual, because you can see if the content is good, you might get hit with an update. It might go down, but the next update or the next little tweak, it seems to go back up again. So if the content's not good, and I've had some friends in this industry where their content is not good at all, and it's like really key, like old school keyword stuffing kind of content, and then you see the Google updates come and their site just tanks and never recovers. So I find that these principles here allow you to go through all the updates pretty with ease. Like there might be some drops, then there's going to be some ups, and there might be some drops, there's going to be some ups, but nothing where it's so dramatic where you're losing your shirt.
No, I'm required by law, I think, to unpack all the stuff you just said, because you are so in the space that there might be like, so EAT, expertise, authority, and trust, point of reference, written about a ton. You can find a lot about it. original origins, wide across the board. But one of the points of reference is the QRG, which is Google Quality Ratings Guidelines. That is their human rating system. It is not directly related to algorithms, but it is part of their training and they're part of their research and their training model. So you referenced that. You called out 2 tactics. I just need to make sure we call them out. For trust and authority, you got to have bylines. It can't be written by, Cool Teddy Bear's staff. I'm just imagining you run coolteddybears.com, Cool Teddy Bear's staff, or, especially if you're in a health or financial or your money or your life space. Again, also called out in QRG, you can't have just health media experts staff wrote this article about, something that's going to help you. You got to have those bylines. You got to have the authority information on the site. So there's a lot of follow up here. If you're not thinking anything, about if you're not thinking anything about QRG, if you're not thinking anything about your money or your life and you're in that space, you got to get leveled up. I mean, and that's one takeaway. I will ask you for the link for there's so many different update checker and tracker tools out there. I'll make sure we put that in the show notes, the one that you called out. The one thing I did want to mention is tell me more about that situation that you see with some of your friends' sites a little bit. And I'll give you my point of reference is oftentimes when we're speaking with prospects or clients, something that they know, but it's really hard to admit it, is that they get a lot of traffic to pages they're not proud of, right? They're just not great, so tell me about how kind of that maps to that. And when you were saying, they've got some old traffic.
That's a really good point. I mean, I have a friend and the majority of his traffic came from like 2 articles that had nothing to do with what he was selling or anything. And it was like, everything else was, the content was, really thin, really terrible, but it's like, well, I'm getting so much traffic from these 2 things, and that's not a business. Like that's just not a business. That to me feels like a hobby. So a lot of people, it's just like, what metrics are we going to, hit? And you can't, traffic is great, but traffic alone does not do anything for your business. If you're not converting, if you're not monetizing, if you're not actually, making money off that traffic. And I know ad networks, people are like, well, if I get an ad network, I'll make money, but your RPMs are going to go way down if people aren't getting what they need. So if it's just like fluffy, fluffy content. So it always comes back to quality content. It really does. It makes everything better. It makes the bottom line better. It makes the quality of traffic better. So
yeah, no, I think you hit it on the head. It's that's I like to joke around. It's kind of like a sword of Damocles just hanging over you. If you've got a page that you rely on and you're not protecting it, if you're not leveling it up, if you're not surrounding it with support content, you're too afraid to do that. I did a webinar with York Ostrom, and they're talking about people are afraid to update the content that gets a lot of traffic. And why, and getting through that. You can't just sit on bad content, or if, especially if you're running a business. Let's say you're running a SaaS business or a publishing business. You've got articles from 2007 generating 80% of your traffic. You're in trouble. Something bad's coming, and you've got to get ahead of it.
You've got to get ahead of it. That's a really, really good point. It's like the more like a SaaS company, or if you have technical, anything that is relative to time or, technology, you have to keep optimizing that content. I mean, simple things like if you are talking about products that came out in 2018 and it's 2020 right now, that's not good. You might still be, and this, I've seen this happen a lot on both ends. You might still be getting such like good traffic from it, but guess what? Someone like a Venture Forth, we're going to come in, we're going to see that you haven't updated this page in 2 years. It's going to be an easy win for us to have that, and we're going to take over on that. So.
That's so funny. It's just like a lot of times on webinars, the MarketMuse webinars, we're talking about folks like Venture Forth in the abstract. But you're basically saying, if you sit out there and leave that backside open, I am going to come around the line and sack your quarterback. I'm coming for you.
Oh my God, I love that. Maybe I shouldn't be giving this advice out. It's like, okay, please leave that content as is. Don't update it. Don't optimize it.
I call them zombies. I mean, so sometimes you get zombie sites too, where they're not being updated, right? Or they're not willing to touch a section. I mean, if I know you haven't updated a section in a year, what are the odds you're actually going to? So I can plan against that. Maybe I don't have to roll out that section of that. Maybe I don't have to roll out that content strategy for myself. Maybe I can slowly roll it out over 6 months because I know you're not moving, right? So there's a lot of things that you can do to take tactical competitive strategies. I think it's a really untapped market that you're doing really well. So tell me about as far as kind of what data points you use when you're kind of budgeting or, figuring out where to focus content, how much content you need, how many update cycles or motions that you need. What data are you using for that?
That's a really good question. And I know that we talked about this when we were at Rhodium, because I still would love, like, MarketMuse can really help you figure out how many pieces of content that you need. And so like with an incubator site, I feel like some of this has been us testing and kind of seeing how, like, the topics that we choose and how much cluster content we need. And then if, like, looking at the data and if it's starting to take off, adding more. And it's not been an exact science where it's like, okay, I say you need 80 pieces of content to start a site, or you need 20 pieces of content. And it really, I don't know if that will ever be an exact science, because for every niche, for every topic, for everything, you're going to need a different amount of content. So so I like to think about, from my end, thinking about the smaller clusters as well as the big clusters, as well as those big, pillar pages, but also those smaller clusters of, do we need 3 articles about this tiny topic or this product, or do we need 1, or do we need 6, or do we need 10? So it's, it depends on the site, and we really let the data speak to us. So we put content out, we see how it's doing those early data points, and I like Ahrefs. Are we picking up keywords? Is it getting indexed? That's first. Are we picking up keywords? And if we are, and the keywords seem to be coming at a decent rate, or a nice trajectory, well, then we add more content. Nice. And then, of course, there's other milestones too as well. But yeah, it's not a completely an exact science. It's more like testing ground, a testing ground kind of thing.
Yeah, because you have the resources to do that, it's great. I mean, I think some people aren't in that same zone, and that's where things like doing, where we have personalized difficulty baked in, where you can say, I have authority on this topic. If I write against this and related topics, I have a higher likelihood to succeed. It's a similar type of impact as I'm publishing, seeing what happens, then I'm modifying and blowing out, or I'm happy with where I am. I think that all those things can drive wins if you're doing things the right way to start.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great approach too, is to say, okay, where do I have wins? And I know the MarketMuse tool is really good at showing you where you have authority. Yeah. And then, so if you're ranking on these topics and you create this topic, guess what? You're going to get to go. So, I mean, I love the idea of focusing on your strengths. It's always great to say, I want to go after this next vertical or this next topic cluster. But if you have a win and it's doing well for you and you can make that better, that's a great strategy too.
Yeah, quicker. I mean, it's quick wins. I like to think about it. Yeah. 3 things. You can either get the quick wins, the quick creates, the quick optimization motions. That's the adrenaline rush, right? And then you've got the healthy diet, which is, I want to own this topic and this monetization part. I got to build this pillar page. I got to build this cluster. And then you've got your editorial calendar. And I want to make sure that every time we publish great content. How do I make sure I do that? But that one in the middle is one that you focus on a lot. And how do you think about pillar pages and clustering?
It's just the best practice that we have found works. And I can tell you from our incubator sites, those sites that we created from scratch, that we are doing every single thing that we know to do right for these sites. These aren't like, we've learned a lot from the early days in the portfolio, and we implement our strategies in the new. And one of the strategies we do is this, the pillar page and content clustering. And I mean, I talk about that a lot in my article, and it's just such a smart thing to do. And it really gives it's really starting to, I can see how it works. Like, so we talk about great content, and if you can have like the best, most, passionate, awesome content, but if you're not putting it in a field to grow,
right,
to really flourish, then the content's not going to be as good. It's really not going to do as much for you. So I feel like we put this great content onto this great structure that is really about how users are using sites, and about giving people, quick questions, long, detailed information, leading them naturally, instinctually through the site, so that they're not just, going to one place, they're going to several places, and just like really thinking like a user. That's why I love the pillar page content clustering kind of structure, because it really does, it works on every level. It works for users, and it works for SEO, and it's a great way to structure sites. And this has been around for a while, but I feel like this is where people, are going more and more.
Yeah, and the interesting we find often is, and obviously it's something that I've been doing for more than a decade, and they're pointing the phrase early on. I know a lot of people have adopted it, but the interesting thing here is, if you're just starting on this path, you're gonna have pages that are already there that naturally will be able to be woven into this as well. So you're gonna have spokes that, when you build this, those spokes will rise. You will have an all boats rise collection of moments, because you've naturally done these things over time. You just don't maybe have it in the same format. My favorite thing is when you've got orphan pages that are 7 or 8 levels deep on a site. You elevate them with some cluster content, with some pillars, with some targeted late stage funnel content, and they grow, and you didn't do anything to them except connect them. And I know you talk about that happening all the time, right?
I love that strategy, and I feel like, as much as I love the incubator sites, I also love when you have a site that's established and you're looking for those holes in your own content, and you're bolstering the things that you need to bolster. And that's what you said, like, it's so good. And I feel like people are always, it's not just about creating new content, but it's about creating fresh content. So I feel like if you have these orphan pages, or these 7 level deep pages, and they're good, if you create the right content around that, you're getting some fresh content, but you're also, some new content, but you're also freshening up the old content as well. And I see that happening a lot, and it's really exciting. I feel like people, when I think about content strategy, a lot of people like to do like just new, but new can also be a refresh of the content you have, or looking to see if you have some thin content, making that good content. And optimizations are so key, and that you can spend a lot of time doing optimizations and get a lot of traction as well, which is a lot cheaper than creating new content every day, or several times a day.
That's the adrenaline too. That's the quick wins. I mean, it's finding those things that you can actually turn return on investment around in months or less in some cases, through identifying potential things where you're telling the world that this page isn't important, but it is.
Yeah.
And you can make it more important by surfacing it. When you're doing your walkthrough, you're kind of, when you're thinking about user experience, you're creating a lens to guide a person in the right path. Well, if they're never going to wayfind, they're never going to find this page. Yeah, and then you all of a sudden you tell the story that this is the most exciting, interesting page on your site by linking and appropriately promoting. You'll be amazed at what happens, and that's what I feel like you've put to a science, and that's pretty exciting. So.
Oh yeah, well, like I said in my article too, we're really obsessive, maybe a little overly obsessive about interlinking, So internal linking is our jam. We love doing it, but it's all rooted in helping the reader and also telling Google what we want to be known for. Like we want to be known for this pillar page, so we've linked everything to this pillar page. Or we want to be known for this topic, so everything in this topic is internally linked together. And so it works both on the user side and your readers, and it also works for Google. So we're really obsessive about internal linking.
My favorite thing to kind of coach in is a case where someone says that they don't want to link to their great collection of content on a topic because they think it might hurt conversion rates. I always laugh. I'm like, wow, you have everything you'd ever want to know about this topic, but you're worried about letting people find it. That is exactly. I love when you say, internal linking is the jam. That is the secret. Doing it well. It's the way you tell the world what you are about. It's the way that you tell the world, like it's your showcase. It's your ability to showcase. I mentioned him earlier on the top line, but Kevin Indig did an article now years ago on internal link dimensioning and how to use that to your advantage. We've also done work on that. Obviously, have a solution in the space, but yeah, you've got to be thinking about internal link structure. If you don't even know your internal link structure, if you have never used Sightbulb or Screaming Frog to understand your link structure, that is a takeaway for today. It's to say, am I getting people to the content that matters, or over time does it degrade and disappear? I mean, that happens on default WordPress. If you don't do anything to stop it, your blogs go into obscurity. You've got to make
very true.
And a lot of people don't think about that. They you got stuff as it ages, it diminishes. But yeah, so internal linking kind of covered, and we've had some great questions. So I want to make sure that we set up some time.
Okay.
The last question, the last thing I wanted to kind of mention is, how has your approach made it so that you don't have as much liability on link building, on outreach, off-page development? How has what you do made that a little bit easier than it is for the average bear?
Honestly, for years, we didn't do hardly any outreach for backlinks. We were getting backlinks naturally because our content was really good.
Yep.
And I mean, it's honestly like it's a time factor, and we do so well with our internal linking. So instead of going to a piece of content and seeing, we're not linking to tons of external sources. We're linking to our own sources on our own site. So that's where we're saying, okay, yeah, we're the authority of this. Here you're doing alternatives. Well, we have a review of this, and we talk about the best of this in this article, and we help you do this in this article. So we use our own sphere as expertise. And I mean, I've seen a lot of people where that's like their number one strategy is like getting external linking. And I have my own media company, and we get requests all the time for backlinks. And I ignore like 99.9% of them. So I feel like this is kind of an old tactic. Yes, there are some people that can get some really strong backlinks, and a few of them strategically placed can really help, but it can't be it's not, at least for us, the be all end all strategy. And I feel like with all of the Google updates, backlinks are becoming less and less significant. And you can quote me on that.
I'll quote you and let the fire bombs come in as fast as possible. It is a case where if you're building great content, you have something to point to. You have something worth pointing to, and then, you may find strategic partnerships. I always think about link building as business development, partner development, as conceptual authority development. If you think about things more critically that way, it makes more sense for you to be referenced. And that's where I think it's a mind shift. Some of the best agencies in the world that think about this way, whether you're talking about like a Siege or an Animals or whomever, they're thinking about link development as on a completely different plane as people who are doing cold outreach. And I think that if you're
that's more
think about that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. It does have its place. Like, you're right. Building relationships, the business development side, that is where I feel like we're going with backlinking, and I feel like we're going away from the skyscraper outreach kind of approaches.
Yep. You can still skyscraper. You can still city build.
Yeah.
You can still what is it? Cityscape. You can still pyramid-scape. What all the wacky structure, the 10xers. You can still do all of those things, and they work really, really well if you write great content. But if you write weak content,
yes, that's a really good point. Thank you. Yes, I totally agree.
You're in trouble, and that's what we see a lot of. We see weak content to start, and then outreach tactics on top. You can't. I hate to say put lipstick on a pig, but that's basically what we see when people are asking, hey, we tried this skyscraper technique and it didn't work. Well,
yeah.
How much did you spend on that content item? $200. Oh, okay. Good luck with that. It's not gonna be the lightning rod for success that you expect. Okay, let's.
And I think that's really my underlying point of all of this. If you have your budget, you have time, you have a team, where are you going to focus to get the most bang for your buck? And it's got to be quality content, hands down.
That we definitely will quote that. I think we might put that on the homepage. But it is true. And I got some awesome questions. And the things, if we don't get to them, again, folks, please join the Content Strategy Collective Slack channel. It is, I mean, everything from free consulting going on, AMAs with amazing people from you, like you, and some other folks. It was an amazing one with Hamlet Batista the other day. But I'm going to answer we're going to ask a few questions now, and then anything we don't get to, we'll throw it in that Slack community. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. Okay, here we go. You mentioned bylines. How are bylines handled when the content is written by a writer pool that is writing for multiple websites? Do you put the byline on the in-house editor? What tactics have you seen work and what not? By the way, awesome question. Thank you, whomever asked that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's a couple of ways to approach this. You can have one core author that has that subject matter expertise and has that outside authority and use that as a byline. So remember, like, Google does look to not only to your site, but how your site is like outside. So if you look up the writer's name and they're coming up as just a writer, or they don't have any subject matter expertise, that's not necessarily a very good thing. But if you have if you have a core writer that has, like, say, Twitter account, a Facebook account, and it at least says, well, this person is real and authoritative in the space. So you can use like an actual one writer, and depending on what you agree with your writers to get, if they get a byline or not. But I do not give any attribution to writers that don't have authority. Well, we don't really have writers on the sites that don't have subject matter authority. But if we have, like, say in the past where we require a site, I just remove their bylines.
Right. Yeah, and it's even more important if you're giving insights into legal, financial, anything like that, to really critically think about. If Joe Figanutes from Albuquerque is writing articles about, drug allocations for a pharmacy law, versus that being a doctor, doctor or a pharmacist with expertise, you're in trouble. And so that's what we'll be thinking about for sure. Yeah,
definitely.
Great tactic to describe. I mean, a great takeaway is if you're not thinking about your writer's points of reference on the entire web, if you're putting up blind names without having them have any backup, you probably have already been hit by a penalty or a filter last year. And I'll leave it there. And we could, if you have any more questions, we can ask that in
yeah, I could get into way more details about this, but
we can AMA that. That'll be good for the AMA. There's a great question about the May core update, Google core update. I'm going to leave that one for the AMA. So tune in there. But I will ask one more question before we round it out. Is long tailing dead? All right, that's a tough question, but what's your take on I guess what they say is long tailing. So long tailing, going out, trying to find long tail keywords and writing targeted content only for those keywords and not backpacking them into pillar and cluster strategy. So can I go long tail, please? Because it's so easy. Can I go long tail?
Long tailing dead. I mean, I would say my quick answer is it's not really that simple because it's still a part of what we do. But I feel like these days the trajectory of like this portfolio is that we were really more obsessed with long tails in the beginning, and now we've really moved away from the really specific long tail, where it's like adding more modifier. And it's about leveling up our content, which means we can actually go after more keywords.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, I think that's a great sentiment. I think the response I would give is a flavor of what you said is you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you're long tailing for the sake of long tailing, long tailing is a natural output of having expertise. And if you're writing content that is targeted for explicit intent, like a long tail query would, it's naturally going to be woven in the rest of your site. Why would you be the expert on answering a question, about, a particular thread count sheet and the way it feels? Why would you know that if you don't have anything else about sheets? If you don't have anything else,
exactly.
It makes no sense just to long tail in isolation. And long tailing in isolation is like building a house of cards. That's all I'd say. You're just waiting for the hammer to hit you, whether the hammer is, the search engines, or if the hammer is a really great website doing the right things. And that's a good way to leave it. And content quality. And thank you, Amy, for joining us today. You can link to you on LinkedIn. Here's your profile at AMYAITMAN. But also check us out on the Content Strategy Collective Slack group. I know I've mentioned it a few times. It's really exciting. We have a promo for MarketMuse. You can get MarketMuse Pro for free for 3 months. Why are you not doing that if you're listening to this? And there's also
my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy upgrades available. That is out. We have that with our trial, but yeah, you can get Pro, which gets you, 50 queries on a 1 user account for free for 3 months. And that is an active promo right now that you can get into. And that's only through the end of the month. There's going to be a new one in June, but I'm not allowed to talk about it yet. That's also going to be fun. And you can also always email me, jeff@marketmuse.com, Jeffrey Coyle on Twitter. I tweet a lot about stuff, and LinkedIn at Jeff Coyle. Thank you again for joining us. I'm excited to see the expanse of the questions that come into the AMA, and thanks to everybody who's listening. Cheers.
Thank you.